They give out awards for rugby.
For like good rugby?
For bad rugby and good rugby.
Oh my God. Wait, have they done like worst rugby player of the year?
They've done worst rugby player of the year. And they gave it, and you won't believe this, to Oxen Shea.
No. This is further proof that World Rugby are just conspiracizing against South Africa.
Yeah. I can't believe they've done this again. However,
it's woke nonsense.
They did also give out some awards for good rugby.
Oh, phew.
And chiefly amongst them, the most important award of the evening, the Contribution to Rugby Award, went to Vicky Cornborough, the former England prop.
Fair play. She's contributed to a lot of England wins by bending down and pushing and doing a bloody good job of it. So well done, Vicky Cornborough, with your 3 eyes in your name.
Okay, so we are going to run through the awards from the World Rugby Awards, which took place last night, and just have a little chat.
Yeah?
Right? Because I think it's a pretty solid selection that's quite hard to argue with this year.
I agree.
Right? So starting with the Women's Player of the Year.
But 15s. Boy, people have argued. Carry on.
15's Player of the Year for the women's, right? I think is the most open shot case I can remember for a Player of the Year trophy. You know, I think Dupont in 2020, if that award had gone ahead, would have been that level. But this was just the most nailed on from pretty early on in the year. Ellie Kildunne has been the best female player in the world this year, on form by such a margin.
She's been unbelievable. Like, to a level, like, I saw she got the award and I kind of like rolled my eyes like, oh yeah, of course it's Ellie Kildunne. It's like, well, yeah, of course it is,
who else was it gonna
she's
be?
the best player in the world.
Yeah.
Like, in the Six Nations, she was genuinely unplayable. To a level, like, she looks like this standard is too easy for her.
9 tries in 5 games, I think.
Yeah. The standard looks too easy for her. She had exactly the same thing in WXV as well. And she used to just be like a really good finisher, a really good try scorer. And she kind of said earlier this year, I want to be seen as the best player in the world, male or female. And it's like, oh wait, she's not that far off that target. She's not as far as a lot of people would think, you know. That her passing game and distribution game has improved to such a level now. When she makes line breaks, she always takes the correct options, you know. She's unbelievably strong. She's not just quick, she's unbelievably strong. Like, no fullbacks have any business being that strong. She's, with Harlequins, like, she's their primary kicker a lot of the time, you know, for like exits, clearances and all that sort of stuff, as well as creative kicks. It's just so hard to look at a fullback like that and view like, okay, what's the weakness in her game?
There is none.
I would hate to coach her.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I would, because it's
I'd
just
play
like,
against her more.
But it's just that, like, what would you do other than just go like, yeah, keep doing that, Ellie. Like, well done.
Well, she's challenged herself so hard, and I think that's probably a sign of how coachable she is.
Yes.
And how great she's been to work with for coaches. Because a few years ago, she had a much more limited game, and she's rounded that every rough edge in her game. And it probably is now just taking the things that have gone from being absences to now presences, to you now want to make them strengths. You know, you want to try and turn her into the best distributing fullback in the world as well as the best counter-attacking fullback in the world. And that's probably where she goes next. Yeah. And she has shown no signs of slowing down. I think she's all-time for 5, 6 Nations rugby, male or female. She was the second top try scorer anyone's ever managed in this tournament this year. She's been absolutely on fire, and that's before you count the assists and the line breaks and the everything else she's managed. Just like the finish she managed against Wales is absurdly strong. You know, it's a brilliant finish.
Oh, and that's the other thing is like defensively, she's unreal. Like again against Wales, she put in like 2-3 try-saving tackles, and like. Generally, she plays for a team where she doesn't have to do that much defensively, but like she covers ground for kicks because every single team when they play against England goes like, right, how do we get around them? Because their defence is so strong. Let's think of a way, right? And like Italy in the Six Nations this year, they kicked quite a lot against England because they thought, well, we're not going to get around like Jess Breach and Abby Dow's like really high press, right? So they tried kicking the ball a little bit more. And it's like, great, you're kicking to the best player in the world.
Exactly.
What are you going to do?
That's all you've got, Speaking of people who are defensively absurd though, Men's Player of the Year, and this was a much tighter run contest, I think. I think any of these 4 easily could have taken it, plus Oxen Shea, as we mentioned. I think there were 5 contenders.
Yeah.
Plus, actually, you can keep going for more, but any of these could have taken it. In the end, it went to Pieter-Steph du Toit.
Yeah. It's quite hard to argue again that there's a little bit more competition. Like you look at the women's selection, you kind of go, yeah, but none of those are quite on the same level as Ellie Kildunne. I've just realised Ellie Kildunne kind of a little bit of symmetry
behind
in the hair.
Pauline Bourdon-Saint-Just, who's behind them, who was also nominated.
Of course. Anyway, it's a little bit more competitive, the men's top 4 that they mentioned. Believe it or not, Caelan Doris has had an outstanding year.
Caelan Doris has been the best player in the second best team over the full year.
Yes, exactly. And it probably is fair enough that he's the best player in the Northern Hemisphere.
I think he has been this year. Yeah,
that he completely deserved to be on that list.
Absolutely.
To the upsetting of many
and he would have deserved
Springbok
it
and
if
Munster fans.
He would have been surprised considering how the Springboks have been the best team by a margin this year. But I think Doris would have deserved it if he's, you look at his performance in the Champions Cup final, you look at his performance consistently for Ireland, he's been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
You look at then, through the rest of the team, right? Cheslin Colby's highlights this year are probably as good as anyone's highlights have ever been any year, ever. Just as far as like wingers form goes, he's been exceptional. And the Springboks started to use him more and use him in different ways, which I think has been brilliant for them. And then you look at the other nominee, Abe Netzebeth, who I would have given it to. Personally.
I agree, but I think a part of that is influenced by last year Ardie Savia kind of got it on the basis of how good he was in 2022.
I would have given it to Eben Etzebeth in 2022 and probably in 2023.
Yeah,
I just think he's overdue one.
Has he not won one before?
Never.
But he got nominated
he's
like 12 years ago.
He's the most nominated person that's never won it.
That's crazy. And that's it. Like on balance, because I think Eben Etzebeth is maybe the best forward to ever play the game.
He's up there.
And he completely deserves to just have that just for his legacy, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And I think I would have given it to him for that, rather than necessarily because he's the best player of the... I don't know, I'm contradicting myself a lot here, but
disrespect.
He's been incredible.
No disrespect to the Irish flanker, who is definitely from Ireland. It would feel crazy if Eben Etzebeth retired without one, but Josh van der Fleer had one.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
There's no disrespect for Josh van der Fleer. He's a brilliant player and he deserved it that year.
And ultimately, none of this matters because Etzebeth's got 2 World Cups.
Exactly. And
this is all quite arbitrary.
If you said to him, would you rather win 2 World Cups and how many ever rugby championships, but you never win World Player of the Year, he'd go, yeah, right.
He'd take that over 10 World
And you're the
Player
most capped Springbok of all time.
Yeah, he'd take that over. He could literally win every year of his Test career. But anyway, back to Pieter-Steph du Toit. He joins a very exclusive club of only 3-4 players who've won it multiple times.
So McCaw won it 3 times. Then Bowden Barrett and Dan Carter each won it twice.
There we go. So he's the first Springbok, the first outside of New Zealand to win it multiple times, which is deserved. You think of in 2019 he won it, and I think a lot of us were probably guilty of thinking that is peak Pieter-Steph du Toit.
Yeah.
Then in 2023, he comes out, has that performance in the World Cup final, and you go oh, that's the best game of his life. He's played even better than what we thought was one of the best flanker performances of all time. He went full du toit in backing up performances, except he actually won the trophy. And then this year, he's performed like that every week, but also with the Tony Brown attack, playing as more of an edge forward or an attacking forward, it's completely changed his game. And it's just I don't see where the weakness will come in Pieter-Steph du Toit. As he's getting older, he's not getting any worse or any slower or anything.
He has remained, he's executed at the same level every single game, right?
Yeah.
And I said this thing in a video before, that Pieter-Steph du Toit plays every single game like he's emptying the tank in the last 5 minutes of the World Cup final.
Yes.
And he has played every single match this year, even, against teams that are significantly below the Springboks in world standings, as though he's playing the World Cup final.
Yeah.
And that is why he's won this. As you say, you then throw in the fact that he is getting more ball and he's playing more ball, and you look at those offloads he's doing against Ireland and creating those tries, and that adds an extra layer to his game. That was always there, but we're now seeing deployed more freely at international level.
I think him and Etzebeth, and this is quite rare in forwards, I think, they're both quite aware of their reputation in the way that they play. Every time you see one of them go into a contact, you see them, you can see their cogs turning and going I have to physically melt this person. So somebody doesn't go, well, Etzebeth's not as good as people say he is, du Toit's not that good, whatever. And there are a certain amount of world-class players in the world who are like that, and those two certainly fall into that category.
Do you think now he's won it twice, Razzie will take his son out from behind the defensive line?
Yes, he will.
Should we move along?
Yeah, let's move along.
So, let's talk about sevens.
Let's talk about sevens.
Sevens. And let's start with the less controversial one. Madison Levi.
Yes.
Mate, There are people out there who are athletes, and they're women and they're girls, and they can play rugby.
They're girls,
and they're good at it. They're good, right? There's this girl, Madison Levi, right? And she can catch the ball.
And she's actually quite fast. As
No!
well. Look, you've seen fast rugby players before. Imagine a fast rugby player.
Yeah.
Imagine it's
Colby.
a girl.
Oh my God. Got pigtails. Colby with pigtails.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
I'm doing Jim Hamilton. Anyway, so Madison Levi is phenomenal. She is, out of every Sevens player I've watched of the last sort of decade or so. I used to be really in Sevens, I fell out of Sevens a little bit, and I've got back into it a little bit this year, right? But of every Sevens player I've watched of the last decade or so, she is the superstar as far as I'm concerned. She's like, not far off being the perfect Sevens player. Because every time she gets the ball, you think she's going to score. Genuinely, you think she's going to score.
I think Madison Levi might be, and I realise I've got in trouble for saying things like this before, the best Sevens player I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Male or female.
Yeah.
I think she is the most freakish athlete. She's been playing rugby league lately. She's switched over there and is, by all accounts, dominant and unbelievable in that as well, because she has this perfect skill set. But she is so well suited for Sevens in particular.
Yeah.
And it is every time she touches the ball, you think she's going to score.
Yeah.
I've never quite seen anyone like it, to the level of like freak athlete she is. And obviously, her sister Tegan is an unbelievable player in herself. But Madison Levi is on another level in terms of the physicality, the speed, the ability to like, even small things like transferring the ball from one hand to the other.
Yeah.
You know, she does unbelievably well. She's the kind of rugby player that I find genuinely quite hard to talk about and write about, you know?
Yeah.
And
it's like no amount of hyperbole will tell you like what kind of player she is.
Someone like Pieter-Steph du Toit, you can write about quite easily, you know, because it's all effort and it's the way he plays and the way he puts himself about, and also he's massive. Antoine Dupont plays with like kind of beauty that I love to write about and I love to talk about. But Madison Levi is just perfect.
It's like she's almost undescribable in a way.
And I'm kind of like, well, she's just brilliant at everything.
Like you think about, in Sevens, if you were to take maybe two skills and say what two skills will make you a good Sevens player. One is you defensively have to be an animal.
Yeah.
You have to defensively put yourself about, you have to be absolutely tireless, right?
Yeah.
And the other one is finishing.
Yeah.
It's if you can finish tries, and I don't mean like just diving through the air and putting the ball down. I mean you spot an opportunity and you go for it, right? You figure out whatever it is you need to do to get yourself over the try line with the ball to put it down. And Maddie Levi is world class at both of those things.
Yeah.
That she's the best Sevens player in the world at both of those things.
Yeah.
Right? Particularly the finishing one I think is incredible because it feeds in like her passing game is great because she can anticipate when that she's gonna like get another opportunity herself, which is a thing in Sevens. It's not so much a thing in 15s, but it is in Sevens. Like you always have to stay alive. You always might be switched on to get an opportunity yourself. Her kicking game is outstanding. That it's not that. You know, it's not as in a tactical way, but it is like you have to put that ball on a dime because you know how fast you are in comparison to the person you're chasing against.
Yeah.
So at what point you need to pick that up. And her decision making on all of that, like her pure rugby instinct is just unlike any other player I've seen.
Absolutely phenomenal.
She's
absolutely
incredible.
phenomenal. Should we move on to the other name we just mentioned?
Yes.
The other Sevens boy.
Yeah.
The Sevens male player of the year. Because it went to the man, the myth, the legend.
My king.
The Antoine Dupont. And this has been slightly controversial because people said, oh, he only came and played half the year. No. He moved over in January. And yes, he went back and forth to play in the Champions Cup.
Like, he missed the Six Nations for this. You know, a big part of why he wasn't eligible for the 15s player. I'm not saying he would have been nominated for the 15s player, but a big part of why he wasn't eligible so much for that is because he wants to focus
By the time the
on
nominations were announced, he'd played 2 games for France that year.
Yeah.
And one was against Japan.
I can see why it's a bit controversial, right?
Yeah.
Because of the competition he was up against, you
Yeah.
know? And especially like a lot of that French team were outstanding, you know? You look at like the likes of Grandidier, Onkanang, and like players like that who really like put their hands up, who were very much in the conversation, but at the same time, I think this was, and I'm not as much of an expert on Sevens as a lot of people out there, right? On Sevens rather, but I think this is what I would have given it to, who I would have given it to.
The award is not the best male Sevens player in the world. The award is Sevens player of the world brackets men's, right? And that is a critical distinction because which player in the world of men's Sevens had the biggest impact this year? That is undoubtedly Antoine Dupont.
Yeah.
You look at the way he came into this French team, who were nothing. They were a middling side. They were an okay, decent team. And he turned them into the best sevens team in the world, and they won both the meaningful competitions this year, including the one that every 4 years they build up to, the Rugby World Cup equivalent in the Olympic gold.
We will come on to the fact that he didn't do that single-handedly.
Yes.
There are much bigger factors
Absolutely.
than him. But you talk about, like, for example, Stéphane Paulès, the captain for France, was originally quite unhappy at the thought of Dupont coming in and taking his position.
Yeah.
But he said himself, he admitted himself, like, we have all played better to show that we are worthy of playing with Dupont, the greatest player France has produced.
Ever.
Ever. And one of the best players, if not the best player the world has produced ever. Yeah. They all raised their game off the back of that. And I'm going to save back some of the stats around France for something we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I think he deserves it off the back of that, as you say, the impact of that, what he did to the French team. The highlight reel is pretty damn good in itself. But there's a big argument that comes up whenever something like this happens, and it's not the first time it's been made, where people will say something along the lines of, this is really disrespectful to hard-working, long-time sevens specialists who've worked their asses off to get this position. And I hear you, I get that as an argument, right? But the thing is, Antoine Dupont has worked his arse off to become the best rugby player arguably in the world for a long, long time, and specialised in 15s, and then went, no, I need to earn my stripes in sevens, and took the year out to do it. And that's why it is World Sevens Player Men's of the Year.
Yes.
Rather than like of ever or in the world or whatever.
Over the last 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. Cycle. Because he's not one of those. But over this year, in 2024, who made the biggest impact? It was Antoine Dupont. And will it be next year? Absolutely not.
We're not just talking about any player, If it had been, I don't know, Morgan Morris, as the greatest player in the world, had come over and won sevens gold, then you'd have that argument. Antoine Dupont isn't any player. He's the most gifted player to come along in generations. Like, him and Bowden Barrett are uniquely gifted. If one of those had gone over, it's a very different story. Hugo Keenan, who is pretty much a World 15 player, also went over to play sevens, barely had an impact, was okay. Wasn't a guaranteed starter for Ireland, right?
Ellie Kildunne did the same.
Kildunne.
And was quite quiet.
Was the best 15s player in the world by distance, as we just talked about. Went over to play sevens and was decent,
It's a difficult transition to make.
Yeah. Antoine Dupont both committed to that transition and made it himself over the course of a year, sacrificed the Six Nations to do so.
If he went over just after the Six Nations, he wouldn't have been nearly as good.
No, But also, is a freak level of athlete where he can have that influence on games and single-handedly win things in a way that others can't. If Lionel Messi went over and played futsal or five-a-side or anything else at the height of his career, right? Yes, he'd probably dominate and be the best player in the sport at that point,
Yeah.
And you probably would give the futsal player of the year to Lionel Messi, right? Dupont, that's the equivalent here.
And sure, it sucks if you're the second best futsal player in the world, But again, this doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's quite an arbitrary.
Tom Brady played Canadian football or flag football or whatever,
Sure.
we're talking about.
If he played most sports, he's probably done.
But we're talking about the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% of players here. We're talking there's probably 4 or 5 players in the sport's history that could have had the impact he did.
Yeah.
And he had it.
Yeah. So I think I want to transition that.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to introduce the coach of the year?
This is one of the controversial ones. Coach of the year went to Jérôme Daré, the coach of the French sevens team.
Yeah, and again, I totally see the controversy here because the name everyone's throwing up is Kingsley Jones. No,
everyone is throwing up in relation to Kingsley Jones.
That is true. Rossi Erasmus has won all but 2 of his games with the Springboks this year, has won a rugby championship, which the Springboks have sometimes struggled to do in past, right? So that is a genuinely big deal, and it should be treated as such. An awesome Grand Slam, again, big deal, should be treated as such. Drew the Test series with Ireland, which, again, I think is a big deal. Losing that one game, sure, it's a blip, it's a slip-up, whatever. He's coached a phenomenal Springbok team, and so much of that is on Rassi.
Yeah.
He deserves the credit for that. It's not just that he has a world-class 15 players. He's rotated them in and out. Like, he's turned it into a 50-man squad, which is something that in 2019, when he first won something with the Springboks, right, you couldn't have said.
Yeah.
You could have said, like, they have a world-class 23 and they've got a top-end international class, everything else.
Yes.
Whereas now you look at it and you go, like, they are developing so much that I don't know who's going to trouble them. Like, I don't know what's
53
going
players the Springboks have used this year.
Yeah, which is phenomenal, and that is down to Rossi. It is down to his influence, and also like him as a motivator, right?
Yep.
And just a technical, tactical coach. We did our whole video on that before.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go further into it. I totally see all that. Once again, I've said this for everybody, including Dupont. Life will go on. Okay, life will carry on. It's okay. It's not a great big conspiracy from World Rugby against South Africa.
It's not even the biggest Coach of the Year nomination in rugby. You know, that's coming up when we do the Team of the Year. For
yeah, exactly. That's what people really want to know. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Would I have voted Rossi in on my own? Yeah, I think I probably would have done something like that. I don't know. Like, when people say like it should have been Rossi, do I agree with them? I'm like, yeah, I don't disagree with you one bit. Right?
I wouldn't argue.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll see when we get to the Team of the Year around New Year's time.
But yes, exactly. But with Jerome Daré, I saw that and I was like, oh shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, great point, because he coached a team who didn't qualify for the 2020 Olympics. And he got them to win, as I say, the two most prestigious sevens events of the year. Main one being the Olympics, which he previously didn't qualify for. And he's coaching a team that had previously, prior to this season, and again, like a lot of people will put this on Dupont. I think this is much more on Daré, right? Yeah. They had never won a major tournament since 2005.
Wow, yeah.
France in the sevens. And he's turned them around and won the bloody Olympics. Yeah. Like the biggest one, where everyone brings in all the big stars, right? A lot of 15s players coming over, as you say. Everyone's at the top of their game.
Became the first team to ever beat Fiji in Olympic Games.
Yes. Like, that's absolutely insane that he's won that. That is a once-in-a-lifetime achievement that not many rugby coaches could achieve. And I don't know much about Jerome Daré, which is my fault. That's on me. Like, everybody who responded saying, oh, who? Never heard of him, right? It's like, okay, that's on you. That's on you. You know, like when Stormzy was announced to headline Glastonbury and everyone went, who? It's like, yeah, in your face, that's a self-own you've just done there, you know? And with Jerome Daré, you might not know his past, you might not know what he's achieved in past in rugby, right? But he's just done one of the most incredible achievements in, let's be honest, like the biggest rugby tournament that's happened this year. Yeah. And sure, is Rassie Erasmus an all-round better and more highly achieving rugby coach than him? Yeah, he probably is. But again, this year, he deserves some credit, Daré. I'm pleased for him.
Look at when Rassie won it himself, right? It was when he guided the worst ever Springbok team to becoming the best ever, well, a World Cup winning Springbok team, right? Who've then gone to become the greatest Springbok team ever. He took them from being not contenders a couple of years out, losing to Italy, losing 57-0 to New Zealand, to then being world champions 18 months later.
And he bloody deserved it.
And he deserved it.
A world-class coach.
He turned around the team enormously. Daré has done the same thing here with France. Yeah. And you can argue how much of it is the Dupont effect. I would say, frankly, the greatest achievement anyone has managed in coaching is writing 9 Antoine Dupont. Or in this case, 25 Antoine Dupont, right? That is a big achievement in coaching. Rassie didn't do that this year. If he'd got Antoine Dupont to play for South Africa, then I think he'd deserve it.
That is true, actually. Yeah. And also, he managed to convince the best player in the world to come over. Granted, a lot of that is probably the Olympic dream and so on. But also, they clearly have a really good culture to play for each other, that French Sevens team.
That came across. You look at them dancing and doing the, everything post-match and so on. That became a huge part of it.
And some of this, again, was speculating because we know more about 15s and 7s, as does everybody who's complained about this.
Yes, exactly.
They're all doing it from the lens that they know more about 15-a-side rugby because they see more of it.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, as a single, individualised event, like, the biggest event of the year was the Olympics.
Where was this anger when Pablo Lemoyne missed out on this award a couple of years ago for bringing Chile right the way through from being no-hopers to being a World Cup team?
Yeah.
That for me is the biggest coaching achievement of the last decade.
Yeah.
There wasn't half the outrage there has been around Rassie, who's won it before and will probably win it next year.
Yeah.
We'll see. Turning this round.
But not winning this award doesn't make Rassie any less of a brilliant coach. It doesn't change anything at all.
It literally changes nothing at all.
Yeah.
I doubt Rassie cares too much.
He's still phenomenal, and he still will be, and probably will be for the rest of his rugby career.
Absolutely. Touch on tries of the year. Right?
Yes.
Menegier's try that won the women's try of the year. Fascinating one. Very rare tries like this win. Normally it's great individual efforts or it's team efforts where 20 players hands change. This is just quick thinking and smart. And I kind of rate this being try of the year. It's a surprise.
It's a surprise.
It's once again evidence that the French do very well in a public vote, as always.
Yes.
As does Scotland in the Six Nations ones. But yeah, I quite like it being try of the year. It's a weird one.
I've not got the energy to moan about try of the year because they're all going to be good, aren't they?
Wait, it was this. It was Kildunne stepping 20 people.
That's
wasn't
it.
Like,
and it's all very, very subjective.
Yeah.
More so than everything else we've just done.
The men's try of the year, however, there was a daylight robbery. We talked about how life will go on. Life won't go on if people don't recognise the try that we're about to show you, which will come up again when we do Moments of the Year, the biggest award ceremony in
That's
rugby.
a spoiler that we are happy to give out.
I'm happy for people to see this.
Ugo Camacho's crossfield kick right here
Unbelievable.
is incredible.
This is the best try I've seen in a few years.
Yes.
Never mind this year. The fact this wasn't even nominated is an absolute outrage, and I think everyone at World Rugby should be put in a bin where they should have to sit for at least 36 minutes.
Or more to the point, I'm just going to offer a slightly different way of phrasing that. It's your loss if you've not seen this or shared this or whatever. So we're going to share it with you instead. But also, like, again, I don't have the energy to complain about it because Nolan Le Garrec's try here is
superb.
Really nice.
Really good.
And the most important bit about this try is that Nolan Le Garrec is confirmed a good scrum half because he runs that line and he scores off it. But yeah, it's lovely. And you know what? There were some great tries scored this year. One of them won the award for the best one. And yeah, I'm happy with it.
One other award we didn't mention, the Breakthrough Award.
Yes.
So Wallace Atiti beat out Sasha Feinberg and Zulu. It is very funny when you look at that award and you see two absolute worldies, and you see Jamie Osborne, who's been pretty good for Ireland. He's a very good player, don't get me wrong, but his name sticks out like a sore thumb there. And I think either Atiti or Feinberg and Zulu would have deserved this. I think a little bit of recency effect kicks in because Atiti's best games came at the end of the year, right before the vote took place. But I think I would have deserved it. Both have been phenomenal. Both will be phenomenal for some years to come.
Yes, 100% agree. I think they're both going to be better and have much longer and more fruitful international careers than Ben Artinger, the first winner of it.
Yes. Gavin Henson won it second time, though.
Yeah.
And will either of these end up on Strictly Come Dancing? We'll have to wait and see.
Do not know. But yeah, Wallace Atiti 100% deserves it. Again, he's one of those players where it's like, where's the weakness in your game? Please show it to me. Sasha, exactly the same. Like, players are not meant to be that good and that talented and that mature in their first 10 caps. And yet he is. He's the real deal.
And Erin King winning on the women's side.
Yes.
Which, you know, he had a King versus King battle in here. Two Kings nominated. Both, four Queens. But I think in some ways it almost feels like making up for the fact that Aoife Wafer is just about ineligible.
Yeah.
Won the first cap slightly too early.
She felt nailed on.
Because Aoife Wafer should have been nominated. That's my one qualm with the... We didn't talk much about the four nominees for the Women's Award, but I think Aoife Wafer is the one player I would have had absolutely in there.
Agreed.
And she would have been this award had it not been for the fact she's a few months too late. But yeah, I think Erin King has been superb to the point in which when I saw her name on the list, I was like, is she only won her first cap this year? Is she a breakthrough player?
Yeah.
That because really surprised me. She's just been so established and so like
what I was saying about
mature.
Sasha Feinberg and Zulu, like that's it. It's the maturity of it. It's just they're like she doesn't seem to make any mistakes, and she just like. International rugby is just her standard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She will play in the Six Nations and you'd just be like, okay.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
What, a second year of international rugby? This looks easy.
Yeah. And she's going to have such a long career because, again, like I didn't realise how young she's 21, I
think so, 21. Might be 22 now. But
yeah. And it's just like, I would have assumed watching her play, she's like 28 or something.
I thought she'd been around the provinces a long time, been in and out of the team. And but no, turns out...
Which is a failing on our part, but hey. But she's going to have such a good 14 career.
And unbelievable, So really excited to see more of her and a really good boost, a really good recognition because I think this Irish women's team hasn't seen much of that at the end of the year. And they have been one of the stories
they're going places, man.
Of 2024.
They're going places.
And so that's been absolutely brilliant. That brings down the curtain on the World Rugby Awards. But there is so much more in the way of awards to come. Most importantly, the big ones. Moments of the Year will be coming on the Squidge Rugby YouTube channel the week before Christmas, somewhere on the 20th to 22nd, 23rd.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
And then, beyond that, the Team of the Year, around New Year, we're going to be going through and doing the important one. We're not going to talk about the Dream Team because there's a better Dream Team coming up very, very soon. We've pretty much decided it. We've gone over just this morning.
In record time.
Over. Yeah. Normally it gets sorted after the first video's gone out.
Yeah, we usually have arguments in the last week of December.
literally, normally it gets like Khaleesi this year. We were going to put last year Caelan Doris in. I literally decided it was going to be Khaleesi. Like after 3 of the videos have gone out.
Yeah. Sometimes we just have an argument. And you know what? That's probably still yet to happen. But look, before we wrap up this video, I have one more award I want you to give out.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask for no explanation on this, just your answer. Okay.
It's Kieran Williams.
So the last thing we're going to say in this video is going to be your answer to this. Okay. This year, of course, in 2024, which do you think has been the best letter in the word rugby?
G. B has been good though.